Welcome to Storytime. I'm Stephen Human, and we are continuing with the adventures, the intergalactic audacity of Becky Blueshift, Book 1. And we are currently on episode 12. So you'll remember they've been captured. They're with Monarch-Monarch and his very crazy, cowardly group of subjects. And they're about to be taken to be eaten by the Horde, whatever that means. So let's go ahead and continue. Gather the kids around. Let's have some fun. Episode 12, Viva la Revolucion. If the castle seemed decrepit and derelict, the arena was worse. It reminded Becky of the ancient Colosseum she'd visited on Lingua less than a day before, only still in use. Hundreds of blue and purple-skinned spectators filled the stands, shouting for the prisoners to face the Horde. Several held up signs reading, "Monarch, Monarch is my monarch," and "Thank you, Monarch, for saving the planet." In the center of the arena stood a cylindrical column of stone about 3 meters tall and 1 meter in diameter. Chains hung from the top where prisoners could be shackled to await their punishment. I'm tired," Becky admitted to Edison as a legion of knights pushed them toward the rocky pillar. Her helium-altered voice still bothered her, but she was getting used to it. "How long has it been since we arrived at Lingua and I took off in the lander?" "Probably 36 hours at this point," Edison said, eyes droopy. "I'm still hungry," Ben responded while trudging next to them through the sand. "We'll get out of this. Don't worry," Becky assured. "It was you who reminded us of what Dad always said. You can't beat a Nobel and a Blueshift when they work together. It's been proven true so far." "I'm not worried about dying," Ben said with a yawn. "I just want some food is all. Maybe my bed too, if you can swing it." "I can't wait till we get out of here and breathe normal air again," Edison added.
"Leave the prisoners, men,"
Captain Sebastian ordered as they reached the arena center. "Should we change them up, Captain?"
"Should we chain them up, Captain?"
Gregor, the soldier with the lizard tail helmet, asked. Becky stared Sebastian in the eyes with an accusing look. She could have beaten him with his own spear back at the crash site, but she spared him. Did that mercy mean nothing to this coward? Would he chain them up with no way to fight back?
"No,"
the captain said finally.
"let them have a fighting chance against the Horde."
"Thank you, Captain," Edison said. Sebastian nodded. He rubbed a purple bruise on his forehead where Ben had hit him with the rock.
"I'm sorry this has happened. It wasn't my intent."
"Help us," Becky said, grabbing the captain's arm. "All we need is a barrel of the fuel you guys burn in the palace and Monarch's necklace. Once we have that, we can leave, and nobody needs to get hurt."
"I can't stand against Monarch,
Sebastian answered.
He is my liege."
Becky kicked at the yellow sand at her feet. Ben. Ben kicked at the yellow sand at their feet. "That guy's a crybaby." "I wouldn't follow him to dinner if I were starving," Edison agreed. A cheer unexpectedly filled the stadium as Monarch stepped out onto a raised platform followed by a group of men and women in green robes. Fresh white paint smeared across the Emperor's face as if he'd added extra to make himself look more handsome. He clapped his hands, and a skinny man in a yellow cape rushed over with an umbrella to block the evening sun from shining in his ruler's eyes. Sebastian shook his head and started walking away.
"He's too powerful. I'm sorry."
Cheers and applause continued as Monarch waved to the crowd. Sebastian closed the gate at the far end of the arena and climbed the rickety steps toward his sovereign. Edison stood close to Becky. "What's your plan?" "All right, first we need to see what this Horde is they keep talking about," she replied. "Then I'll have a better idea of what we're looking at. I'm thinking we rush the guards and have whatever monster they keep in here follow us. That should freak them out and give us a chance to make a run for it. It's what our parents would do." "Yeah," Edison mused. "Your mom and dad, my mom and dad, always saving the day. Except when they don't." "What's that supposed to mean?" Becky asked, suddenly defensive. "Nothing. You don't think we can get out of this? Your parents trained me for stuff like this." Edison turned, eyes suddenly angry. "Oh yeah, they trained you. And look at the mess you've gotten us in. We should have called for help, or better yet, let Peppercorn and the fleet figure all this out so we wouldn't be here in the first place. They would have left our parents trapped forever, Becky countered. We'd never have seen them again. I never saw them before, so, Edison mumbled. What are you talking about? Edison shrugged, but his face seemed hard as diamond. They spent more time with you than they did with me. I was only good enough to learn how to fly the ship. Nobody talks about me taking over for my parents. What was it Nostrella said? You're already expected to be the next great adventurer and inherit the heroic commission, not me. Edison, Becky said, trying not to get mad. My mom was the one who taught you to fly. My dad spent all his time with Ben blowing stuff up. Yeah, he did, Ben added. And you think that you're neglected or something just because I wasn't afraid to go on adventures with your parents like you? You think I'm afraid? Edison shouted. I'll show you afraid. You sit back and...
Behold!
A squeaky voice echoed, cutting Edison off mid-sentence. Becky turned to see a tall woman standing next to Monarch-Monarch on the raised platform. She wore green robes similar to the king's, but with yellow fur instead of white.
I present the infinitesimally brilliant, athletic, and not at all incontinent Monarch-Monarch!
Hoots and hollers rained down from the audience like roses. The ruler swayed back and forth in a little dance, a satisfied smirk across his face. Let's concentrate on getting out of here, okay? Becky said while elbowing Edison in the arm. After that, we can yell at each other all we want. Sounds good, Edison said. All right, we follow the plan. Lead the monster or whatever toward the guards, escape, and then we grab a barrel of fuel and one of the crystals from the throne. Becky eyed the necklace dangling from Monarch-Monarch's chubby neck. Yeah, grab one from the throne. That's plan B. What's plan A? Haven't figured it out yet, but when I do, you'll know.
Citizens of Monarch,
the king shouted to a roar of approval.
You're here in the greatest kingdom in the universe, ruled by the most wonderful lord ever to walk under the stars, the smartest...
Here we go, Becky sneered.
Most attractive, sweetest smelling, funniest, most graceful, and least likely to trip while walking downstairs ruler ever!
More cheers.
We love you, Monarch!
A teenage girl with a red pigtails and blue face painted white like her king's shrieked from the stands.
And I love you,
Monarch-Monarch continued.
Now, we will unleash the Horde on these dangerous criminals. Criminals who would destroy our way of life. Criminals who called me a liar and dared say Nitro Nobel never bowed to me and told me I was the greatest ruler he'd ever seen.
Shouts of no's and destroy them exploded from the throng. Monarch-Monarch raised his hands for silence, and the people grew quiet.
We will wait no longer. Release the Horde!
A tense shiver ran up Becky's spine as a trio of guards in dingy pink armor ran over to a wooden drawbridge underneath the king's platform. With a twist of a round lever, the barrier lowered on a dark tunnel. The crowd clapped in time as if creating a music beat for the coming brawl. What do you think it's going to be? Edison questioned. A bunch of Tungans or something? We're about to find out, Becky answered. I'm ready for anything, Ben said, raising his fists for battle. As the drawbridge hit the sand with a thump, a hush fell over the stadium. Something moved in the darkness like a snake, followed by more movement and more, all close to the ground. Dozens of tiny eyes reflected the fading sunlight like stars in the gloom. What are they? Ben asked as the crowd started cheering again. Becky watched nervously. Something burst into the arena and sent a small cloud of sand spitting into the air, followed by a second creature and a third. Their fluffy fur danced in the sun in colors of spotted white, yellow, and bright blue. You've gotta be kidding me, Becky smiled. Trigladors, Ben shouted with a laugh. Woolly, three-legged creatures, no bigger than a dog, scrambled from the tunnel, yipping at each other with the harmonics of tweeting birds. Their flat faces and big purple eyes bounded up and down as they ran, mouths open, showing their baleen plates, similar to humpback whales. The comb-like fibers hung down where most creatures had their teeth and were used for filtering insects from the air. Troglodytes couldn't even bite, which made Becky giggle at the thought of being eaten by the Horde. She remembered the short time they were allowed to have a Troglodor as a pet on board the Loveless. The good-natured creature would chase Ben around and gnaw on his shoes with his gummy baleen. "This is what they were planning to kill us with?" Edison asked as the Troglodor ran over and nuzzled against his leg. "So much for scaring the guards with whatever monster was trying to eat us." Ben snickered. "Didn't the captain guy say he fought a Troglodor in single combat and he was a hero because of it or something?" "This is embarrassing," Edison agreed. "It makes sense, I guess, with a society as spineless as this one. No wonder they were afraid of us if they think Troglodors are dangerous predators." "I have an idea," Becky said. "Ben, hand me one of your shoes." "You want me to take off my shoe?" "Just do it." "Fine." Ben pulled off his left boot and handed it to Becky. "Follow me, my terrifying Troglodors," Becky called. She whistled and held the boot over her head. The Troglodors followed as she ran around the stadium, waving the shoe. Quickly, 24 fluffy animals on 3 legs formed a single mass of excited Troglodors, all having the time of their lives trying to get a hold of that boot.
"What is this witchcraft?"
Monarch-Monarch bellowed in as intimidating a voice as he could muster in the helium-rich air.
"She can control the Horde!"
Someone in the crowd screamed.
"She's the doom of us all!"
Another cried. Becky continued running around the arena like a master at a dog show, leading the happy Troglodors on a merry chase.
"Stop her, guards! Stop her!"
Monarch-Monarch ordered.
"Captain Sebastian, go out there and stop this!"
Sebastian ran dutifully down the steps and leaped onto the sand. He yanked his sword from his sheath and stepped forward. "All right, Captain," Becky said. "Get ready to face your greatest fear." With a flick of her wrist, Becky threw Ben's foot at Sebastian's feet. Instantly, the Troglodors turned and swarmed toward the warrior. Horrified cries rippled through the crowd as if they expected the knight's flesh to be ripped from his bones.
Ah!
Sebastian screamed as he turned and started running from the slobbery pack. The Troglodors followed his every move, seemingly enjoying this new game immensely. Silence gripped the mass of blue faces in the stands. They watched, half in horror, half in amusement, as their captain ran back and forth, barely outpacing his pursuers. Another idea suddenly flashed in Becky's brain. She ran past Edison and Ben toward the column in the center of the stadium. "What are you doing?" Edison asked. "Plan A," she called back to him as she grabbed one of the old chains hanging from the top of the stone column. Becky pulled herself up and scaled the rock until she stood commandingly at the pinnacle. "Listen to me now, citizens of Monarch," she cried. All eyes turned to her, even Monarch-Monarch. "I am Becky Blueshift. I can control the terrible Troglodors. I defeated Captain Sebastian in single combat. I have the power to destroy your kingdom." A baby started crying somewhere in the crowd. Men and women held each other close and trembled at Becky's words.
"Don't listen to her,"
Monarch-Monarch rebuffed.
"You don't need to fear this creature. I am your leader, and no one will ever be greater than I am."
A deep breath filled Becky's lungs. This is going to be easier than I thought. "Then I challenge Monarch-Monarch to single combat right here in this arena." A collective gasp sucked the air from the Colosseum. The king stepped back and looked around like he needed someone to hide behind. Sebastian reached one of the gates and started to climb frantically to escape the Troglodors. "Look for yourselves," Becky continued. "Monarch-Monarch and his military commanders are afraid of me. You know I speak the truth and can destroy this kingdom. Consider this a revolution, and I'm taking control of the government. Lucky for all of you, I'm feeling magnanimous today.
What does that mean?
A woman in a green robe yelled with fear in her eyes.
Is magnanimous one of your evil powers?
Edison raised his hand in response to the woman's inquiry. It means generous, forgiving, or it doesn't matter what it means, Edison, Becky snapped. I will let all of you live if you toss Monarch-Monarch into this arena right now and pledge never to follow him again.
You'll spare us?
The woman asked.
Don't listen to her!
Monarch-Monarch shrieked like a little girl. Yes, I will spare you, Becky assured. With that, the woman nodded and pushed Monarch-Monarch from his place on the platform. He tripped over the edge with a howl and fell 2 meters to the sand below. Plop. Spitting and cursing, the king rolled around trying to lift himself back up. Becky climbed down the column quickly, chains rattling against the stone as she used them to lower herself. Once on the ground again, she walked over to the disappointed emperor. The three-legged triglyptors scurried over to her and hopped up and down as if waiting for a treat. One jumped on Monarch-Monarch's back, forcing a scream from the blubbery man. He looked up, face contorted in fury mixed with dread, white makeup cracked and flaky. I'll take that, Becky said as she reached down and yanked the crystal necklace from Monarch's throat. She held it above her head and turned toward the spectators. I am now in charge of this kingdom. Bring us some food and a barrel of isotope fuel so we can get out of here. The stands rumbled as the crowd moved like a flock of birds to answer Becky's call. She took a tired breath and looked at the glowing crystal in her right hand. Edison and Ben ran up to her as Monarch-Monarch whimpered pathetically in the sand behind. Ben hopped on one foot as he tried to put his boot back on.
Everyone is incompetent,
Monarch-Monarch sobbed.
They're all betraying my glory. Everyone fails me all the time. Nothing ever goes my way, ever.
Becky kicked sand at the pitiful despot. Stop whining. So, do you rule the planet now? Ben asked. No, she doesn't, Edison answered like an annoyed history teacher. Something like that would be completely unethical and against regulations. I don't know, Becky smiled. It could be fun to be queen of my own planet. Maybe I could clean this place up and teach these people how to show a little courage. That's not happening, Edison continued. Besides, we need to... Engines suddenly roared over the Colosseum with the thunder of a hurricane. Wind pounded from above, spitting sand in Becky's eyes. Spectators halted where they stood and started crying out for Becky Blueshift to save them from the sudden storm. What is that? Ben yelled over the rush of air. Rubbing dirt and grime from her eyes, Becky focused on a shape coming into view through the dust cloud. A black vessel with 6 lateral engines lowered over the stadium. Spikes poking out in all directions, along with harpoon cannons. A demonic red skull adorned the front. The Queen Ala la Baba Yagal. Nostrellus found us! Edison cried. What do we do? Becky held tight to the crystal in her hand and looked at the nearest exit gate. We run! There we go. That was the end of episode 12. Tomorrow we will read episode 13, Sputtering Engines and Clashing Swords. If you want to get a copy of this, go to stephenhuman.com, check it out, and I will see you tomorrow for story time.